Hi Claudine, how you going?
Fantastic. Hey, Pato, awesome to be here.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. And listeners, thank you for joining us.
So, I guess for people who don't know, like you're a mindset coach, and you work with backyard ultra runners and things like that. So, just might
Mhm.
sound like a simple question, but like, I mean, what exactly is mindset?
Yeah, okay. So, look, just at its very, very simplest level, I would say that it's really fundamentally just how your mind is set.
Mm.
And then how your mind is set is going to actually determine everything. How your mind is set is going to determine if you're going to have a great day or an average day or a bad day. How your mind is set is going to determine how you handle your training or your runs or just anything in life. So, yeah, just at its very simplest level, I would say it's how your mind is set.
Yeah, cool. Was there a particular experience in your life where you first realized the power of the mind and mindset and things like that?
Without question. I mean, look, it was always something that it was always something that was standing out to me, right? I could see that people were confident or not confident, or they were happy or they weren't happy. And I could just connect very clearly, like as a kid, that this was really their frame of mind. So I wasn't going around saying, hey, what's that person's mindset and talking about it in that way, but I could always sort of see it. I would say a jaw-dropping, pivotal moment for me when I truly, truly tapped into the potential and the incredible, profound potential of the mind was when I was a brown belt, so my background is in many things, one of which is karate. I trained karate for about 25 years. I competed for about 15 of those years in the as a brown belt and then as a black belt. So I was competing in the black belt division in the open female black belt division. And when I was really only sort of quite early on, I was a brown belt and I was the lowest ranking brown belt. And like as in what's known as a third Q I had one sort of stripe and there was a few more to get and that takes a while and then you get your provisional black belt. So I was quite a ways off. But at that time, you were still allowed to compete in the black belt open division. And it was 6 weeks out from the national titles. And it was my first nationals in the black belt division. And I really had this conversation with myself. I sat down and I was like, it's 6 weeks to go for the nationals. What is my goal for this event? And I had decided that my goal would be to come third in point fighting, in fighting. And it was weird. I had this weird sort of conversation with myself about that. And I was like, third, that seems like a funny kind of goal. Like, it's not, you don't often hear people say, I really want to come third. But that's what I had said. And I kind of noticed that. And then I was like, why do I want to come third? And I was just able to be really honest with myself. And the truth was, that was the absolute upper limit of my believability.
Mm.
Like, because the truth, if we're looking at facts, the facts were I was technically nowhere near the level of the other females in the division, right? The other women were just fundamentally better karateka than me. There was the reigning national champion, and I had never even come close to beating her in a fight, in any encounter ever. So in my mind, it was just like, she's the champ. I can't even get close. So that was an actual reality. The World All Stars world champion was in the division. So there was just this huge, like, list of other women that I knew were better than me, not in an imposter syndrome way, in a factual, actual way.
Mm.
And so I just didn't feel like it was practical or realistic or accurate or possible or any way at all believable to say, I'm going to win this. But I had this point and I was like, third is a weird goal. Like, And then I asked myself probably like a life-changing question. And the question was, what if you were to just decide to win anyway? And I don't know what sort of happened or why, but decided that I was going to try to win.
Mm,
And I dedicated the next 6 weeks, like I did a sort of a little micro assessment of everything. And I was already training what I thought was very, very hard, right? And I knew that in 6 weeks' time, I couldn't really squeeze out too much more performance that was going to give me this really this sort of quantum shift in my performance. But I knew about mindset. I had heard about mindset. I knew about like you could do these things, and we constantly hear like you are only using a certain amount of percent of your brain and all of these things. And I had already been doing, I'd been looking into a host of different avenues around mindset. But basically, in those 6 weeks, I went to town and I became my very first client. It was me. And I taught and coached myself in how to go from zero self-belief and zero, like, it was like, how am I going to overcome all of these facts that I'm not the best? And how am I going to become the best anyway?
mm,
And in that time, I seriously worked morning and night on my thinking, on my core belief system, on what I believed was possible. I did a host of different tactics, strategies, implementation, and that proved effective.
mm.
The night before nationals, there was one of the parents of one of the kids, one of the younger kids who was competing, and she was going around and I had been, by the way, extremely private. I had done all of this in private. I wasn't going around telling anyone I was doing this. I wasn't declaring that I was the best and I was going to win. It was all private, just me. And then the night before, one of the parents went around with a video camera, like recording and interviewing people. And she came up to me and she said, "How do you think you're going to do tomorrow, Claudine?" And for the first time, I just and I knew, Pato, I knew, and I just said to her, "I'm winning tomorrow." And
Yeah,
she said to me, and it was very quiet, and it was just her and I. It wasn't like this bravado thing. And she said, "You seem very, very confident." I said, "I know this is happening and everyone else is fighting for second place. It's mine." And I just knew the girl, the athlete, the karateka that I had never beaten, who I had been so intimidated by and so scared of. And so, like, when I knew that it was I faced her in the by the way, I had the world all stars world champ round one. I wiped the floor with her. I was absolute, like, it was just like this beast came through and I was so sharp, and it was like it just totally overrode my technical ability.
yeah,
That was the first round. I just knew, like, keep going, keep going. I've got this. Like, it was just like, yes, I couldn't wait to get in the ring.
yeah,
And then in the semis, I was against the national champ that I had never ever beaten or never come close to beating. The stuff that I had visualized, it really is, frankly, I actually can't explain it. I don't understand the physics or the quantum physics of it because I'm not a physicist. But what I can tell you is that the stuff that I imagined and visualized, it realized,
yeah,
and it was profound. And I won that national title. And it was truly one of the most magical experiences and the most phenomenal and remarkable experiences. And at that point, I thought, oh my goodness, what else can I do? And that was the tipping point. And those strategies and those things that I implemented then are the thing. Now I've grown. That was back then. I have grown and grown and grown my toolkit and my understanding and my ability to execute on these things. Like, my knowledge and my experience is like just hundreds of times more than that. But those lessons and those things that I was able to do, not from an intellectual academic thing, but practically, like I knew how to do those things on the inside and made them a reality. And
mm,
so those exact things I have taught to, it depends on my client and what they need. But those things I did all those years ago, I'm still teaching, still sharing, and then other people are winning with them too. So yeah, that was the absolute game changer.
yeah. Awesome. And now it's your life's work, right?
Yeah, yeah, I would. I mean, it absolutely is. I guess I would sort of say that it felt like it was sort of in a very encompassing way. Yes, I would have said that it already was,
Mhm.
even prior to me teaching other people and coaching other people,
Yeah,
because it really is just who I am. It's how I think. It's how I navigate the world. It's how I think. Like I can't watch a television show without seeing the mindsets of the characters, or if I'm watching a documentary, I feel like I can see people's belief systems and things. And, so it really is just so intrinsic that it's really a way of living, not and a way of and yes, it is my life's work. Yes.
Have you seen like, I mean, it feels to me like in the last 10 or 20 years that talking about mindset and things like that, it's
Hmm.
more talked about and open. It's not as taboo. It used to kind of feel a bit taboo
Hmm.
talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are insecure. I think people are afraid. I think people are afraid to put on the table because like so if I were to be really honest, I would say that when we want to hide any part of ourselves that we're afraid of or any part of ourselves that we feel are flawed.
Mm,
And I still feel that this stigma is very much alive in the athlete communities and in leadership everywhere today. Is extremely common still that people are seeing it as I am inadequate. That's why I need a mindset coach. The opposite is true. The opposite is true. It's the confident people, it's the people who recognize that this is a skill that I can access and I'm just not accessing it.
yeah,
Like it's the total opposite. It's the ones who are insecure that they say, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm going to look flawed. It's like, buddy, come on over. No one gives a shit. Let's train. Like,
yeah,
let's right. So I do still, yes, it's more accepted, Pato, but nowhere near the level that it should be
yeah,
because it's really just it's like a fundamental human need to be able to have peace inside of your own self. And if we would all do that, then it would really radically serve to minimize, reduce mental health issues because we are taking care of our minds, we are empowering ourselves, we're loving ourselves, we're being kind to ourselves, all the good stuff. Because it's not just like, hey, I'm here to win.
mm,
Like, no, that's not the mindset work. That's not the mindset work I teach. I teach much, much more holistically than that.
yeah, awesome. And do you remember when or how you first heard about backyard ultras?
Yeah, sure. I think it was being like because I work with a lot of ultra runners, and some of my ultra running clients would reference backyards in our coaching calls. But it actually wasn't until like I really dived into it in 2023 when James Blanton reached out to me, who had qualified for bigs, and he reached out and said, I've got bigs uh, I need to become like, I want the best mindset possible. And I was like, you are in the right place. Let's go. Right. So, and that was when I personally did a massive deep dive into backyards. I mean, James never asked me to do this, but so that I could serve him effectively. Because I want to knock everything out of the park. I want everything I do to be like a 20 out of 10. I want my clients to be like constantly blown away. And so I needed to know more than James about backyards in a way, to really understand the depth and so many components. So it was really that. So then he and I could at least be on a level, and I would be like, okay, what about this? What about that? What about, so it was really James Blanton that hooked me into this incredible world.
Yeah, awesome. So when I talk to some people about backyard ultras, they have like difficulty understanding why
Yeah.
people would want to do one and run for hours and hours and hours. So did
Yeah.
you get it straight away when you first heard about backyards?
Yeah, of course.
Hmm. Yeah.
Of course, because it's really the pursuit of self. I mean, listen, this is going to potentially sound very poetic, or, this may not necessarily resonate with every single person because every single person is unique who does a backyard. But to me, the connection that I make is that every person doing a backyard has a sense of something greater inside of themselves and they are seeking to discover it. They are seeking to discover their own deepest self. They want to expand, they want to go beyond.
Mm.
It's like what Joseph Campbell referred to as the hero's journey. And in a way, every person doing a backyard is the hero of their own story. They're going beyond, they're pushing beyond, they're finding their outer edges of themselves. So for me, that is my bread and butter. Of course, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, awesome. And as far as the mental aspect goes, what do you think
Mhm.
makes the backyard ultra unique compared to all other sports?
Right. Well, I think that in order to look at the mental aspect of what makes it unique, we actually need to look at the format. And that is what sort of serves to create the mental element to me. So it's the only sport that there is only one winner and everybody else is a technical fail.
Mm.
Now we know that those people aren't failures, but from a technical view, that's the only sport that exists. Okay. Now, what that means to me, and again, I don't expect other people to be making this interpretation, but what that fundamentally means is you're stepping up to that line every hour, knowing that it's who's going to break the last. There's no other sport that has that definitive line in the sand of, I refuse to continue, or I can't continue, or I can't keep up. Like, and so that requires a mindset or a mentality, consciously or unconsciously, hopefully consciously, of I'm entering this event knowing that it's very probable that I will break. That's quite a unique point of view
Yeah,
because only one person will not break and everyone else will break.
yeah. So have you pinpointed something in backyard ultra runners
Mhm.
themselves that sets them apart from other kind of sports people?
I think, yes, I think it's the extremism
Yeah,
in the nature of what is required. So it's obviously extreme I think it falls in parallels with other extreme sports. So, for example, very big wave surfing is very extreme. It's extremely dangerous. You take on that 40 foot, 50 foot, 60 foot, 70 foot and beyond wave, knowing that your life is on the line and you willingly do that. So that's an extreme mentality.
yeah,
Similarly, with a fighter, with a boxer, with a cage fighter, with in MMA, also have that mentality of I understand that the terms and conditions of my sport in the pursuit of striving for excellence and being this hero and being someone extraordinary and going into the depths of myself. I understand the terms and conditions that I am very likely, I will definitely get hit. I will definitely get hurt. And that may be extremely significant in some cases, right? And so, how does this relate to backyard ultra runners? Well, I mean, I think most of them are clear that this is going to hurt. At some point, it's going to hurt. Otherwise, why would you stop?
yeah.
You're not going to stop. You're only stopping because you either physically are so hurt you can't continue, or mentally and emotionally you are so hurt you can't continue.
Mm.
So it's about the willingness to step in the face of that knowingness that it is going to hurt. It's also going to be amazing, incredible, profound, expansive, adventurous, joyful, camaraderie, and like just so many other things. So it's not just that, uh, there's all we're willing to pay the price of admission for those other experiences.
Yeah, cool. So I know you work with athletes from a lot of different sports as well,
Mhm.
but do backyard ultra runners like have a special place in your heart?
Yes. Yes, you guys are so addictive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And all of the fans of and admirers. I think I am just so infinitely impressed and in admiration of backyard ultra runners,
Mm.
the ones who are really and truly expanding themselves exponentially. They are defying reason, they are defying what is practical, they are reinventing what is realistic. They're saying, oh, you can't run for 3 days? Watch me. You can't run for 4 days? Fuck yeah, I will. Like they're just redefining the rules. I love people who do that. I love people who aren't interested in status quo and who just want to go to the outer edges of themselves. So for that reason, another thing that really touches me about backyards is it's in a way a little bit like martial arts for me because I see myself as a martial artist, with all of my fundamental training is as a martial artist. And I see a lot of overlap between the characteristics of a martial artist, the dedication, there's this unwritten sort of honor when you watch bigs and you watch these athletes, the honor and the respect that the athletes have for one another, it feels very, very similar to martial arts because you know that that person is going through hell and has done things that are impossible and unfathomable, and yet here they are, they're doing it, and they're doing it with this incredible spirit and attitude. And for me, yeah, I think it's truly remarkable.
Mm. The, I mean, you would have heard like a lot of people talk about backyard ultras being like, for example, 90% mental and
Mhm.
10% physical and ratios like that. So,
Right.
do you agree with that?
Uh, Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the part where I might differ is how I review what is mental. I think that typically when people say these statements, like, running is 90% mental or backyards are 90% mental. I mean, recently I had someone say to me that they thought that it was 20%. I respectfully didn't want to challenge them on that because, that wasn't the nature of our conversation. But in terms of what I believe, so it's definitely at least 90% mental. And what I mean by that is, let me substantiate that 90%. So when I talk about the mental training or what is mental, it is not just believing in yourself. That is like, I would say that there are sort of three main core areas of what the mental aspect is. The one that gets overlooked so much is the strategic high performance thinking. That is mental. That
Mm.
is mental. You will not be an exceptional backyard ultra runner if you have low performance thinking, if your strategic approach, one of the reasons why Phil is so exceptional, there are many reasons, but if we look at Phil, his strategic game is he's leading in his strategic game. He's the one who said, I'm going to study sleep. I'm going to prioritize sleep. I'm going to do these, and it's like that is not just grit.
Mm.
So we need to really distinguish like the mental game is so much more than grit and mental fortitude.
Yeah.
So for me, I would categorize it as strategy, decision making, adaptability, flexibility, coachability, all of these things in the mental aspect. And then it's really like, what is your mental power?
Yeah.
Right. And in the mental power part, that is your resilience, your grit, your ability to manage your mindset, to go into a hole, to come back out, to tame your mind, to be able to have incredible self, to all of those things that is going to comprise in like that mental fortitude, that real sort of mental power and the mental endurance. And then the other aspect is a little bit more, it's mental, but it's also emotional as well. And because self-belief and confidence and belief in yourself isn't just a mental thing, it's an emotional thing. It's an all at once thing,
Mm.
right? So we can't sort of deny that it's only mental. So it's income. So that's why I've got that in a sort of a third bracket.
Yeah.
And when you don't have those things, you're not going to have your sport. You're not going to know how to train for it. You're going to be doing inadequate training. You're going to not understand how to prioritize. You're not going to know how to coach yourself or be coached. So, yeah, it's definitely 90% mental.
Yeah. Um, it's really good you said that because I mean sometimes people think, oh, it's 90% mental, so I'm not going to worry too much about food or nutrition or anything like that because I'm
But
so
that's,
mentally
Pato,
tough.
that's mindset right there. Hear
Yeah.
that attitude,
Yeah.
right? Hear that. So that's an example of someone's mindset,
Yeah.
right? And it's got nothing to do with self-belief, but it's inaccurate thinking.
Mm,
So obviously that's not your thinking. But do you see if somebody has that attitude and it's not an attitude, it's a thinking
mm,
pattern underneath. So the work that I do is to identify those types of disempowering, unhelpful thinking patterns. It's not just working on our self-belief. Of course we do
yeah.
that. But my job is well, the job I allocate to myself is to catch every single one of those disempowering ways of thinking and to say, oh, let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at the material impact of that. And actually, do you see, like, that's a perfect example. Beautiful. Thank you so much of why mindset is 90%. Because you get that bit wrong, that whole disregard of nutrition. Well,
Yeah.
your race is over, buddy. Like, of course, you do see.
Yeah.
So it's really about our ability to think in accurate, intelligent, and empowering, effective, productive ways.
Yeah. So it impresses me a lot that these athletes you work with, they're so in touch with their mental game that they
Mm.
actually recognize that working with someone like yourself would help.
Yeah, yeah. This is one thing that I find um, quite extraordinary. So what I would say here is that the athletes who find their way to me are the ones who are willing to just say, she knows something that I don't know. She's coached these other people who are believing in themselves, going after things, going for amazing things, getting entirely new levels of confidence, right? I don't think it's rocket science.
Mm,
I think it's the writings on the wall. It's like this stuff is effective. Case study, case study, case study, case study, case study, right?
yeah.
And all someone needs to do is say, I want to learn that stuff. It's really that simple. And so what has happened over and over again is that an athlete hears another athlete talking about me, or they hear me on a podcast and they say, wow, if she can see that mindset that's going to impact the nutrition, or if she can see that thing, that what else can she see? Right. And it's really like how that's a tool to close the gap between where I'm at and where I could be. So all it is someone to be able to have the willingness to make that connection. The part that blows my brain is how few people step up to the plate, even though they hear all this stuff.
Mm,
Right. I actually asked, so Joel Sexton, who of course has been one of your previous podcast guests, he's joined my Athlete's Ultimate Self-Belief Journal. And Joel had such a phenomenal, sorry, everyone, listeners. So if you're unfamiliar, so Joel is a fantastic backyard ultra runner, competitor. He's gotten some incredible results and he's only, going up from here. And Joel joined the journal. And I said to him, he had an incredible first 30 days. Like he said, he had gotten into the best mindset of his life. He couldn't believe how much he could change mentally and just in terms of his sense of self in 30 days before he stepped up to a backyard.
mm,
And afterwards, I wanted to talk to him about it, and we jumped on a call, and I asked him, what are your thoughts on like why did you really decide to do this? And he just said, I just felt like there was something I needed to know, and I didn't even really know what that thing was, but I needed to find out. So I just think it was this curiosity. And then when he discovers it, he's like, holy shit, this is like more than I ever thought, like better than I ever thought. And so really it's just about having this curiosity for, knowing what actually, like your first question is, what is mindset?
mm.
And the answer is there are so many answers. So yeah, just tapping into that and opening up the door to those possibilities, and it's right there to open up that door.
Sure. Um, what about the physical side of things? Like, how
Mm.
much does training hard and putting lots of miles in the legs
Mm.
help the mental side of things?
Do you mind if I ask you a question on this one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so obviously this is going to vary, but would you say that you have like pick a week of good mileage or a week of mileage that you're impressed with or that you feel is impressive to some degree? And then let me ask you, does that make you believe in yourself more? Does that help you to feel stronger? Does that fundamentally shift how you think and feel about yourself? And is it lasting?
Yeah, yeah. It
So
definitely
is
helps.
it,
Yeah.
it definitely helps. Is it lasting? So let's say the next week you have lower mileage, then what happens to your mind?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like sometimes like I feel like I have to put in a lot of mileage before a race because if I don't and I start feeling tired, I'll think,
Yes.
oh well, I haven't run enough. This was bound to happen. It's
Right.
so it
Right.
kind of go hand in hand.
Right. So this is what I would consider to be one of our deeply hidden invisible rules that every single one of us have, myself included. We are all making up these invisible rules.
Mm,
And Pato, used to love this particular rule. And the rule was, if I'm not absolutely annihilating myself in training, I'm not training hard enough. And then there's another invisible thing that I wouldn't say out of that, but it meant, and then I will be
mm,
shit in when I perform. And then sure enough, so do you see it? So this is a perfect example of an invisible mindset, and it's an invisible belief. And I want to step in and say, this is not 100% accurate.
mm,
And that, and what I want is for someone's thinking to be accurate. And so let me just come back to the actual question. Does running make your mind stronger? No, not in the long term. The only thing that will make your mindset stronger and clearer is working on your mindset. If you want to have strong biceps, you can't go and do ab work. You got to do biceps. If you want to have strong legs, you got to work your legs. And if you want to have a strong mind, you have to work your mind.
yeah.
So, yes, you will get some benefit, but it won't be lasting. The only thing is to do the actual mental work, the mindset work.
Yeah. There have been races I've done where leading into them, like I'm so sure that I'm strong mentally and I'm going to do well just because I want it so much. But then when the race starts getting hard, all those positive thoughts and the determination are pretty much gone out the window. So is that normal?
I would say that that's fair.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, it very just in connection to our last point. So it's very easy to say, I want this and I want that, and I'm going for this, and Actually, that's not entirely true because it can be really tough to say those things, right?
Yeah.
But saying them isn't enough, right? Saying isn't being, saying isn't doing, and if we don't do, we can't be it. And so I can't just say, I really want it. I really, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be determined because you haven't got the rock solid foundations of fundamental belief. And if you haven't done the real foundational mindset work, then you can't have a strong belief system. So it's really perfectly aligned with what we were just saying. If you want to have a strong mind that can weather the storm, and you bet there's going to be storms. If you haven't trained your mind to weather the storm, you won't know how to weather the storm. You won't know how to get through it. You won't know how to transcend it, elevate it, go through it, handle it, dig deep, fight through it, whatever it is, right? In order to have that skill, you have to understand what that skill is and then train it.
Mm. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform well in backyard ultras, and I'm sure a lot of runners like feel pressure before big races. So, like, is feeling pressure okay?
Again, it's something that you need to train yourself to handle,
Mm,
right? So, yeah. I mean, personally, I trained myself under pressure so much. I actually used that as an opportunity to shine because I knew others hated it. And I was like, great, this is an opportunity for me to step up. Right. So I personally loved high pressure situations. It enabled me to show who I was and what I could do. And I knew that it was a potential vulnerability for other people.
Mm,
And so people have these, there's like a very popular reframe where people say like pressure is a privilege. Listen, I don't think that's going to cut it. I don't think that's enough for someone. I don't think it's moving enough. If that's moving enough for someone else, but that's not going to do it for me. That's not comforting enough for me,
mm,
right? I want to do more inner work to be so robust that, and I do this all the time. Like I train, I've got athletes who go for world titles, huge fights in spotlight, under pressure, all this stuff. And I teach them how to love the pressure, how to handle it, how to step up, how to rise up, because that's where we belong and that's where we feel like we deserve. So, again, it's just something that can be trained, and you can train it, and anyone can too.
mm. So I may have mentioned I'm running an MVP backyard ultra in a week, and I mean it's one thing to consciously say out loud to myself that I'm going to win, but how do I make sure that like my subconscious is aligned with what I'm thinking and saying consciously?
Well, we need to reverse the clock, go back 3 weeks. You need to reach out to me, and then I need to train you in how to do this,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not just something that you can just, it would be like, imagine if I came to you, Pato, and said, um, I'm going to do some stretching and some running this week, and then I'm going to go into this event. You would be like, what? You haven't done your blocks, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, and so therefore it's kind of like, with all due respect, you haven't earned the right to be in that mental and emotional state.
Mm,
So you really have to earn it. Mindset and belief, consciously and unconsciously, has to be earned. It isn't something like, it isn't something that you can just have. And I think that this is, I'm so grateful that you've asked this question, because I feel like people are and it's simply because we haven't, I feel responsible for this in a way because I haven't been vocal enough. I haven't shown up enough on social media. I haven't shared enough of this information. I'm sorry, guys, it's coming. But I think just really educating people that it's not like this switch you can just flick. It has to be real.
yeah.
Right? It has to be foundational. You can't just condition your subconscious mind like that. There are some exceptions, right? But again, it won't be lasting. And when someone works with me, that hangs around. That belief is fundamental because it becomes who they are.
Mm,
My goal is to always have my athletes get so mentally strong that they don't need me. You guys should do it without me, right? But then, of course, I can take them to another level and another level and another level, and because it's infinite, right?
mm,
But to really come back to your question, Pato, you aren't going to have that subconscious belief if you haven't fundamentally worked on all of your fears and doubts, and then worked on creating a mindset that you feel is believable for you,
mm.
and that is going to stand the test of time. That's the truth. I'm sorry to say, that's the hard truth.
Yeah, no, no. So last night I was sitting on the couch and I caught myself thinking to myself that, okay, if I don't run a new PB at MVP, maybe it just means that my best is behind me and
Mhm.
shouldn't I shouldn't try to do my very, very, very best in a backyard ultra. I shouldn't put so much pressure on myself anymore. This is just, I'm on the downhill. That's bad, isn't it?
I don't really like calling things good or bad. And the reason for that is I don't think that it is, what I'm more interested in is what is accurate and what is inaccurate. Is that helpful or unhelpful? And more importantly, is that accurate? And what I will say to you respectfully is that is inaccurate. And I can show to you very clearly why those, hang on. There is one aspect of that that can make that accurate, and that is if you believe in that and if you choose to believe in that level of thinking.
Mm,
That will become your destiny, that will become your result, that will become your reality But what you need to do is you need to, at the moment, if you have a thought like that, you are like this with your thoughts. To listeners, if I'm holding up my hands and crossing them over, and what I'm trying to say is it's like we believe our thoughts. You might have heard when people say, don't believe everything you think. They say this thing, but what does that, guys, come on, what does that really mean? Right? I'll tell you what it means. It means that we all make up these narratives and there are invisible rules driving what we believe is true. People try to say that this is logical and rational, but it's not. It's a false logic, and we believe that logic. And the false logic here is the best is behind me.
Mm,
What a load of absolute fucking bullshit, right? You don't need to believe that, and you can change the narrative, and we can just say something else, but we want it to be believable, right? Because we want it to be real. Now, I don't want to turn this to necessarily into a coaching call right now,
yeah.
right? But what I will say is that everyone needs to learn to be able to review their own thinking. This is very, very difficult. Even when I teach it to people, they're constantly still getting caught out, which is how come I need to, you know, I can say to them, I can see it like this. It's like I can see these invisible belief systems everywhere all the time. And and so, Pato, that's just not true, right?
Mhm.
Um, the invisible belief here or the invisible rule is I'm going to point it. Are you happy for me to point it out to you?
Yeah.
Because then it will help you to get rid of it,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So the invisible rule here is if I don't get a PB, then my best is behind me. That's not true.
Yeah.
Will you tell me, do you like what makes that true? Are you in that theory, in that rationale, in that reasoning, what that means is only people who improve their PB every single time are worth anything, and the rest of us are all going backwards.
Mm,
But that's not how growth happens. That's not how progress happens. How does progress happen? It happens like the weather. And what that means is it is non-linear.
yeah.
Okay. So you are going to improve, and then something's going to happen, and you won't have a race as good as your other races, right? That doesn't mean your best is over. It means something was off, something was out, something needs to be tweaked. It wasn't your day for whatever reason. Like there are so many reasons, and that's where you need the mental intelligence to review what happened there, what happened there, and then we can find out, and then we course correct and go again, right? But it's insane to think that if we were to take any of the top athletes, not a single one of them are going to have a chart that shows better, better, better. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
So instead of living by this false belief system that is inaccurate, we can say, hey, I'm going to take this race and I would like to, I would need to know how you've trained for it in order to determine how you're going to do. And that would be like, why not just set a goal? You can set so many different types of goals. You can set a goal to just support yourself all the way through. You can set your goal to just be an absolute badass. You can set a goal to run with joy or to be an absolute, like, or to run in the dark and just be like, I'm going to go through hell in this race. And it doesn't matter how many fucking loops I do, I'm just going to go through and go through and go through, right? Like, there are so many different types of goals that we can set,
Yeah.
right? And it's really based on who you are, what's important to you, where you're at, what feels believable to you. And then we go with one that feels really good, and then you go and do that. But you don't make your metric something that's unattainable and frankly untrue. I have to always perform better, otherwise my best is over. Um, you want to have a conversation with James Blanton. I'll let him tell the story instead of me.
Mm,
But James Blanton has an incredible story about this exact thing. James is doing, along with Joel, James is also doing my athlete's self-belief journal. And on one of the live calls, right before Bigs 25, James had this profound realization where he realized he had been saying a narrative, not the same as yours, a different narrative, but it was absolute bullshit. And we did this call and he realized, oh my God, this is absolute garbage. And then that was this huge tipping point. Thank Christ. before he went into Biggs. I'll let him tell the story. But I can assure you, we are all making up these false narratives based on false rules that we can't see,
Yeah.
right? What we want to do is we want accurate thinking and then empowered narratives that support us and fuel us to greatness.
Mm. That's really good. I've never thought about setting goals like that just to like, my goal is just to be an absolute badass for the whole race and things. I've never
Yeah.
thought of things like that before.
Yeah, and then you can just be like, yeah, this loop sucks. Well, fuck yeah, I'm hitting my goal. Like, let's go, right? Like, yeah. And and that style may not resonate. Like, this is why I need to know someone personally to understand what resonates with them, right? This is why goals and mindset aren't a cookie cutter thing. And unfortunately, we hear someone else say a thing and we think, oh, they're using this mantra. I'll use that. Oh, that's not necessarily going to help. That doesn't resonate. It's got to be an inside job. You've got to know yourself
Mm.
so you can build your authentic self. And that is when you become like so powerful because it's so real to you. And everyone else can go be them because I'm being this.
Yeah.
And then it's so unshakable because, it's just like no one is better at being me than me. No one is better at being Pato than you. So go be Pato. Go be the best fucking Pato you can be. Go be that guy. Go figure who out he is and then go be him. And then you go run like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, coaching session over.
So I think a lot of people, me included, when they're running in a backyard
Mm,
ultra, they'll
mm,
find themselves having these negative thoughts and they come from nowhere. Like
mhm,
things like, this is too hard, I want to stop. What's the
mhm.
point is
Yeah,
a common one.
right.
So what are some ways to just stop those negative thoughts from creeping in the first place?
I think that this is a little bit like asking, how do we stop the weather from being bad?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. I just don't think that that is fair because the nature of the mind is like the mind is not a computer. And it's important to understand like the nature of the human mind. The nature of the mind is to always be sort of seeking. It's always sort of going in different directions. And we're like trying to keep up and we're seeing it saying this thing and doing this thing and undermining us. Now, you can absolutely tame your mind and you want to make it your friend and you want to make it this real support. I just don't think that that is reasonable or realistic to think that you aren't going to have any negative thoughts. You're a human being having a human experience and you will have doubts and you will have fears. What I would prefer to do is get you to step up and handle whatever fear, whatever thought you have. That is more realistic. To be so empowered, to be so mentally strong, mentally and emotionally resilient and unstoppable that no matter what thought you have, you can handle it. That makes you far more powerful. I don't want to be afraid of having negative thoughts.
yeah,
What I want to do is I want to show someone how to not let those thoughts own you. So what you have a negative thought, keep running, keep going. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, what's the point? It's like the other thing is prepare for what you know is coming. If you know that you're going to hit a point and you're going to have a narrative that's going to say, what's the point? Well, you better build a case before you go out that answers the question. You tell me, Pato, what's the point? Why do you do this? You know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
like what's the point? And I know you've got loads of answers.
Mm,
You need to make those answers clearer in your mind before you go out, right? So that you can handle those thoughts when they show up and you can shut them down and you can manage them and you can get rid of them. Now, everybody has different ways of doing it, right? You can take the Goggins approach, which is to revel in it.
mm,
He's like, yeah, give me the darkness, man. Like, yeah, I'm dark. You're dark. I'm darker,
mm,
right? But most other people are afraid of having dark thoughts. You can take the opposite approach to be like Harvey Lewis, right? And his whole approach is like, to my understanding, I have never spoken to Harvey. This is only to my understanding. The guy is just light embodied. He is just lightness embodied. And he gets through backyards from, he gets through that darkness with light. My personal strategy is also being light. I know how to be dark. I'm a fighter as well. My background is fighting. and I know how to fight. I had like, boxing fights, very serious boxing fights as well. So I definitely am a fighter. I know when to fight. I personally love bringing the light, but you cannot bring the light if you haven't trained yourself to bring the light. So again, it's about learning what works for you and being prepared and training that skill, not just intellectually, but doing that in training as well.
Yeah. So because if someone was really obsessed with just staying positive, and then
Hmm.
but then a negative like i- idea pops into the head,
Hmm.
that could just really throw you. If you don't, if the whole goal is to stay positive, then once
Hmm.
you turn negative, it can kind of like upset the race, I guess.
Yeah. So that person needs to understand that, mindset is never just one thing. You have to be infinitely adaptable. You
Mm,
have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. You have to be incredibly resourceful mentally and emotionally. Mental resilience is adaptability, not like that, like this, you try that approach, you try this, that's not working. Fuck. This isn't working. Now try this, now try that, right? And you can't do that if you haven't amassed a bunch of mindset tools in your toolkit,
mm,
right? What people think, this is why mantras drive me crazy, right? People think I've got a few mantras in my back pocket, I'll be sweet. What the hell? No, that's not even the bare minimum,
yeah,
right? Mantras is like a one key that fits one lock for about 10 minutes.
yeah,
Okay, maybe longer if you're lucky. It is not going to help you on day two or even after 24 hours. Like, if your mantra isn't the specific thing that's dealing with the problem, right? Then game over.
mm,
It's not a one size fits all. We need all of these different ways to handle the things that come up.
yeah. So would you say that using music is a similar to a mantra?
Um, Possibly, it depends on the individual.
Yeah.
So I'm very reluctant to answer these sort of one size fits all questions because what works for me may not work for you, may not work for, again, it's like, how does someone, okay, how has someone trained to respond to music? Now you might say, what the hell are you talking about? Right? I personally trained myself to create certain emotional and mental states to music. So I would play a song and I would feel a particular way, play it, but I did that conditioning, right? This happens automatically when people play a song and they remember a thing. They play a song and it reminds them of a time,
Mm,
right? So this isn't something like, that is new to people, but people aren't doing it consciously and intentionally. So if you haven't trained yourself to do that, you won't be able to do that. It won't feel real. It won't feel authentic. Um, Sometimes the answer is you don't need to be pumped up,
yeah.
right? Sometimes you just need to calm down. Sometimes you need to stop thinking. Sometimes you need to, like, I don't know, the answer is different every single time, depending on the situation. Loop 24 requires a different mindset to loop 38,
Mm,
requires a different mindset to, do you see? So
yeah.
it's like the song that's going to work on this loop isn't going to work on that loop. And a really brilliant mindset coach, of which there are, frankly, very, very few, is highly adaptable and highly specific to not just to the individual, but to the moment. And this is why crew can, first of all, it's up to the individual, it's up to the athlete to be able to do this themselves. But this is where crew can really, really help to come in and help redirect their mind in a different direction. But, crews aren't trained in this sort of thing necessarily. They're just doing their best and taking care of, practical things as well.
Yeah, sure. So as far as mistakes go, like, what are some common mistakes that you've come across with mindset in backyard ultras?
Well, I feel like we've covered a couple of them already. So having rules around how things have to be done that are fixed and final, like I have to be positive, otherwise my race is going to fall over. So
Mm,
that's an example. Like people have all those types of things. Um, and so just having belief systems that are disempowering and unhelpful, and then people unravel when the race doesn't happen the way that they want it to. So having very specific way you need the race to unfold or who you need to be. I would say that that's a really big error. I think underestimating probably something that I would say that more novices would do is that and you know what? This is probably no one listening to this podcast, to be honest, but you will have all seen them. You probably know what I'm talking about. Like when they go to a backyard, it's very performative. And what I mean by that, it's like, hang on, a better response is they're not professional.
Mm,
And what I mean is, and sorry, what I meant by performative is like it's kind of almost like this sort of show where people are coming into the tent and out of the tent and it's very sort of that's what I mean by performative. So it's sort of it's a bit amateur. There's no leadership in the tent. There's no one prioritizing the athlete, controlling like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Like, you kind of want to do it from very early on. You want to be saving yourself, you want to be dialed in, you want to be relaxed, but you don't want people coming in like it's a sideshow.
yeah.
Right. And so I think maybe some more novice backyard runners would do that. And listen, you know what? I don't want to be a party pooper. If someone wants to have a great time doing that, that's fantastic,
Yeah.
right? And that's excellent because not everyone needs to be an absolute savage and find the outer edges of themselves and stuff. But I do think that anyone entering a backyard wants to go further and they will go further if they treat it more seriously, if they prepare. It doesn't mean you need to be unhappy. You can be light and treat it seriously. You can be up. In fact, I recommend it,
Mm,
being lighthearted. You're going to run further when you're lighter in terms of like, being dark and negative, those other things that you mentioned. So yeah, simple things are having control over your tent, having control over who comes in, making sure that they're not distracting you and taking up your precious time. Um, really prioritizing. I would actually say having a very structured tent is very important. I think that that is really underutilized. Um, you know, I watched Phil Gore, Ryan Crawford, James Blanton, Jashi. Um, they were the top four at Sydney Backyard in 2025, and I was really lucky that I was just able to see them all. All their tents were next to each other, and you could just see, you know. And by the way, all of them were just incredible. Like I was in awe and admiring every single one of those athletes, like without question. But Phil's tent had a structure to it that was on another level to me. And you know what? Maybe someone else that doesn't mean anything. But to me, I thought that's an edge. That's an edge. Someone who is so structured and so organized and it was sort of mechanical, right? And what that does is that eliminates cognitive load. It
mm,
means that he doesn't have to think, he doesn't have to work anything out. The crew are extremely and it kind of follows this pattern. And then anytime you can remove cognitive load is great because now we can just like in a backyard, right? Your cognition goes, your ability to think clearly goes. And if you can outsource your thinking to other people who are trustworthy and effective, fantastic. So having a very structured tent, I think is really and a lot of people are improving this more and more. Um, and honestly, I'm just going to be incredibly biased, but I think it's true. More work on your mindset, more work on your thinking, identifying false thinking, that's going to disempower you in your training, in your preparation, in how you approach things. It's going to change your entire race. I have no question.
mm, awesome. So people might be wondering, like, what do mindset sessions with you actually look like?
Well, um, they are kind of similar to this conversation, except they are incredibly like they're just very, very real. And then lots of enlightening things happen, and people have these incredible breakthroughs, and people are like, oh my God. And then it's amazing. And then they go off and get gargantuan results and have transformational experiences. That's kind of how they go.
Yeah.
And feel free to, if you do interview James Blanton and get him on here or Joel again, or, any of those guys who are working with me, just ask them. So in the self-belief journal, there's a live tier to that. And this is pretty much how you can work with me at the moment. Like now, I'm doing a lot less one-on-one coaching. I'm very, very limited with my time now. So with the self-belief journal on those live group coaching calls, honestly, it is just breakthrough, breakthrough, insight, people realizing all of this incredible stuff and going and getting phenomenal wins. Like, I wish I could just record it and publish it because it would just blow people's heads off. Like, it is so amazing, Pato.
Yeah.
Like, truly, it is a privilege to be a part of, and it is such a joy. It's really, really incredibly real, empowering, insightful, effective, and and supportive. Incredible. I think I'm tough because I'm direct, and I think people aren't used to being sort of direct. People like to be talking around things,
Yeah.
right? Not me. I'll say, here's the mindset, here's what I can say. And that's what they come to me for,
Yeah.
right? They're like, please just tell me what I can work on, right? And we get to the thing, and I'm like, hey, here's the thing. And then they can see the thing, and it's like, wow. And then, yeah, so it's beautiful, and it's deeply, deeply empowering.
Yeah. Awesome. So, can you tell me about how you helped James Blanton prepare mentally for Bigs in 23?
Absolutely. Without giving away his innermost secrets, because I'm extremely private and about those sorts of things. But James has given me permission to talk about our working together. I mean, obviously, I make sure that I always have everyone's consent before I speak about anything at all. So James reached out, and basically in that period of time, he and I worked together in what I would call like champion mindset coaching,
Mm.
right? So it's not just mindset coaching, is I'm teaching someone how to build a champion mindset. That's what James and I did. And it was very intensive because he frankly came to me like it wasn't too late, but it was pretty late
Mm.
in my view, right? It was maybe like 8 to 10 week. I can't remember now exactly. Maybe August, September, October. Yeah, it was around 10 weeks, right? Well, no, we need more. We need more to really, really build to get rock solid. Like just like a training, like you've got to do so much work for it to just be like we've got to go from like I'm pretty good to I'm a fucking champion. I'm world class.
Yeah.
That's a leap. Now, James was one of the fastest learners I've ever had. He was committed to the work. He did everything I asked of him, and I asked a lot because I have higher standards. I mean, I'm not a high performance mindset coach for nothing, right? I got high standards, higher, like no matter who anyone is, I'm always going to raise their standards. So it was really the three key areas that we identified before. It was the mental intelligence, working on the strategies, working on how are you dissecting this race? How are you dissecting how you're going to approach for this? How are you right? So there was that.
Mm.
There was the kind of innermost belief. And we worked a hell of a lot on that. We had to because I needed Jane. Like when your question before was, how do I get to believe it in my unconscious?
Yeah.
I had like 10 weeks with James to get him there. And we got there, right? Doing that very, very deep inner work of like, really, I know I'm world class. I deserve to be here. And to just get him to the point where I'm just going to go and go and go. And like, that was where he got to. It was phenomenal. So the work that we did was really around just and also planning and being like I was very demanding around like I wanted planning. I asked to see spreadsheet. I wanted him to make a spreadsheet of everything that he needed. People would probably be surprised to know that, right? It was like I want what's your what are you taking? What's going on? Build out your list, and I want to see it. And then I would check it and say, what about this? What about that? I want to add to it. Where are you picking it up? Where are you like? That doesn't seem like mindset, but what that is to me is a professional's mindset,
Mm.
right? I don't want any amateur shit.
Yeah.
I want you to be, if you're going to world champs, you want to be a total professional, and that requires like being a professional in how you think, in how you prepare, in how you plan. So there was all of that. That was more minor compared to the real stuff, which was believing the absolute shit out of yourself. That was the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, unreal. Now you kind of mentioned it before when you were talking about the karate, about
Mhm.
you said you were going to win. So how
Mm.
important is it, like the importance of playing to win?
Okay. Everyone is allowed to do whatever they want. Okay. I have had some athletes to just, they're honestly just too afraid to say, I want to win this. And I accept that. I am not here to force that on them. Right. Um, They developed that, by the way. So, particular athletes that I can think of, I just needed more time with them for them to feel more comfortable with owning that. And my job is to help. My job is not to push. If I can see someone won't go there and it will be counterproductive, I won't push. So, in that instance, instead what I did with that athlete and with others like them, it was like focusing on things that they felt were powerful and believable, and we left it there. My personal favorite strategy all day, every day is to play to win. I don't care what it is, let's play to win, right? Now, the truth is, we can't win every time, but let's play as if that's how it's going to happen, right? Because it's going to make me grow. It's going to make me challenge, and that's what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking to grow and upgrade myself and become a better version of myself over and over and over and like expand my potential. Before I die, Pato, I want to squeeze every bit of potential out of myself that I've got. And that won't happen if I'm like, if I had let Claudine all those years ago be like, yeah, I'll go for third place.
Yeah.
Like I would never be this person, right? And there have been times when I've played to win and I haven't won. As
Mm,
in I didn't get first place. But you know what? In my own way, I still won because of the person that I am and the person that I became. And what is more important to me than any victory is the person who you are and the person that you become in the pursuit of excellence and in the pursuit of your goals and dreams. Because at the end of the day, it's how did you live your life? No one really cares. Or maybe you do, I beg your pardon. Maybe an individual does. So I don't want to put I don't want to be telling anyone what they believe. So someone may disagree and rightfully so. But for me personally, it's how do I live my life? How do I show up to my own life? Am I really alive
mm,
or am I only half? And I want to be fully alive. And that for me means playing to win, having the courage to dare to lose, to be a loser. Yeah, great. I'm a loser. Let's go. Like, that's how unstoppable I am,
yeah.
right? Like, so what if we lose? Fall down 7 times, stand up 8, let's go. Like, big shit, move on.
Yeah.
Instead we're living in all this fear. What if I fail? Who gives a fuck?
Mm,
Let's go. Let's attack this thing. Right? And do you see, you become like when you don't care about losing, right? You become so fearless, you become so real, you become so confident. You can't beat my spirit when I'm unafraid to lose because I know that I am more than any win or loss. That's not my identity. That's not my worth. And I think a lot of people tie their worth to their outcomes. And that's why they want to dial those down, dial those back. So hell yeah, Pato, let's play to win.
yeah, awesome. Now let's talk a little bit more about James Blanton. And did you work with his crew as well? Like, how did you work around with James and his crew so they work together best as a team, I guess you could say?
Right. So this was a little tricky because James came to me and James was my client. So this was Biggs 23, right? So James was my client. But I no, so and that was, I believe, the first year. I could be wrong, so apologies. But anyway, that particular year, they were only allowed to have one crew member. That was the right. It was the introduction of one crew. It was like one crew. Holy shit,
Yeah.
right? And because I am extremely thorough and meticulous. I was speaking to James about his crew for the event, and his crew was Timothy Walsh. So Tim Walsh, Dead Cow race director. Now, Tim didn't reach out to me and say, help me to help James, but right? It was James. But I was like, I got to the point where I was like, how prepared is Tim? How prepared is Tim to crew James? Because that is going to be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
So I actually requested, I spoke to James about it and I said, James, I would like to have a meeting with Timothy and you and me, and I want to talk about how is he preparing to crew you? And that was difficult because I'm now overstepping a mark, right? And I'm sort of inserting myself with someone who could be like, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? So I felt like I needed to be very careful about that. But it was really, I just want the best for my client. I wanted the best for James. And if Tim was not going to be prepared, then James was not going to perform as well. So it was critical to me. So that was like how I sort of inserted myself into the crew. And, Tim was awesome. He was very happy to meet, and I had to restrain myself very much from giving him a lot of instructions about things that I wanted him to do, things that, these are the mindsets that I want, here are some things that would be amazing if you could say, right? What ended up happening after, and I can't confirm at what hour it was, but so Ryan Crawford was also racing in that in Bigs 23. And Ryan and James, as you're probably very well aware, but for the listeners, if you aren't aware, Ryan Crawford, um, uh, incredible backyard ultra runner, and James are, they've done episodes, of course, on this podcast together.
Yeah.
Um, incredible teammates, incredible buddies, right? And unfortunately, Ryan, he stopped earlier than he wanted to that year, and what that meant was that, and Tim was rightfully exhausted, right? And what happened was Ryan, after racing and running loop, 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 right, then ends up crewing for James. Now, the race is going on and on where, hundreds of kilometers in, right? Morning, night. And this is over in Tennessee. And at the time I was based in Sydney. Oh, no, maybe, excuse me. Sorry, no, I was on the Gold Coast. I was living on the Gold Coast at the time. I'm hardly sleeping. And prior to that, I had been just messaging Tim, trying to gauge what was going on, using the live feed, glued to it like everybody else. When Ryan stepped in, and I could see that James was hitting very, very low points just from his body language, seeing his gait. And I was like, right, this is what we need to do. This is what I want to do. How can we talk to him like this? Blah, blah, blah. And I thought, screw it. I'm going to message Ryan and just say, I'm James's mindset coach. Can we start talking? And Ryan was so incredible.
Mm.
My respect for Ryan is huge, both as a human being and as an athlete. And the way that he stepped up and supported James in that was truly extraordinary. And, he was so open and so, I guess, not that I was trying to coach Ryan at all, but I wanted to coach James, and I had to go through Ryan in order to do that. James and I ended up getting on the phone. I was saying this, saying that. What about this? Try that. If he does this, can you do it? And I was passing on, trying to coach through Ryan, which was just so incredible. So I try very, very hard to not insert myself into the crewing team. But sometimes it does happen with these very, very long events where, it has happened in other events, like where I've coached other athletes, say for Coast to Cozy, so a 240-kilometer run. And, if my athlete is in a dip, I will send a voice note, send them something that I know will resonate, that they need to hear. And send it to the crew, and they will play it for them while they're, and then they get this burst and then they can go, right? Or something like that. So that is how my relationship with the crew is. If there's anything that I can do remotely, I will.
Yeah, unreal. So, what are some simple key things in crew that can make a huge difference for the athletes?
I think being very organized, I think being very preemptive. I think being on the ball.
Yeah.
I think similarly, I'm a huge fan of just like fundamentally being very professional, right? And for the crew to be professional, it just makes things very seamless and easy. Much, sorry, that's untrue. It doesn't make it, it makes it easier
Yeah.
for the athlete,
Yeah.
right? So I just think being very, very professional, being very, very un being very undramatic. I think a lot of the best crews are very undramatic. They're not getting flustered. They're handling things. They're adaptable.
Mm.
Um, yeah, just seeing them handle things. I think leadership in a crew is probably, I haven't heard anyone speak about that, but I do think that it's important for crews to have an element of leadership and to lead the athlete. So, what I mean by that is if the athlete starts saying something like, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like that, or they start going into one of those negative spirals, the crew can lead that athlete into a new direction by saying one thing or just frankly, whatever the technique might be, not allowing that, going into that rabbit hole with them, supporting them, right? So distracting them, reassuring them, whatever it might be. So it just really stepping up and having more leadership. And specifically, like as I was mentioning earlier with the novices, just what are you letting people come into the tent for? Now, when you're someone who's an incredibly experienced runner, and that's no issue for you, absolutely fine. But if you've got 10 people, 20 people, it becomes like sort of, it's very chaotic. And if your athlete isn't prepared for that, that's too much for them. You need to protect them. So
Yeah.
being a leader, respectfully saying, hey, putting some boundaries in place around that. So they would be some simple things. Probably just the final thing that I would say is also being a really calm, positive source for that athlete of confidence. Trying to instill confidence into their athlete, letting them know they look better than they think, letting them know that they look stronger than they are, letting them know that you like, because this is a thing called emotional contagion, right? Where our moods are catching, right? And so you need to be cognizant of your mood because your athlete will catch your mood
Mm.
and you want to use that to your advantage. And of course, crews know this. Crews are doing this already. But if they're, I'm not sure can they squeeze out another 1%? Maybe they can. Let's do that. Right. So using your mood to give energy and power to your athlete or calmness or whatever emotional state they may need.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, or it happens with me sometimes. I might have a race coming up, a backyard ultra, and I'll tell people, oh, you should come and say good day while I'm running, and other people do the same thing as
Mm.
well. But then like
Mhm.
they'll come and visit, but you actually don't want them there. You want to stay focused, and sometimes
Yeah.
all these people visiting in the marquee, you think, oh, what do
Right.
I tell them to come for?
Right. And so that's where, so understanding that in advance and actually communicating upfront and saying, I would be so grateful for your support, but your crew, so you can manage that, or your crew can manage that by setting those boundaries.
Mm.
And you can set the expectations up front and saying, just to let you know, like, I'm taking this incredibly seriously. And, this is going to be difficult. And so if you were to come, I'd be really grateful if you could stand over there and cheer. But just to know that the my tent is pretty much for the crew only. That's it.
Yeah.
Like even can I just say, like I am so incredibly respectful of that. Like so at a Sydney backyard in 25, right? When James, so I wasn't coaching James one-on-one for that event. I still did not enter his tent,
Mm.
right? I went and spoke to Kitty, his crew, on the break, right? But I made sure that I left it to Kitty and I left it to that crew, right? Even me, who, of course, I think I would have been a positive influence. You know what? Get out of there and you leave it to the crew. Like just having that level of understanding that every minute counts, every bit of rest counts, and I think, yeah, that's how I think about it. Like just really not entering the tent unless you're meant to be there.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Now it sounds like pretty much everyone can benefit from working on their mindset, but what are some signs that someone should watch for to tell them that they need to work on their mindset?
Look, I don't want to be telling anyone what they need to do,
Mm,
right? I think that everyone, I think it needs to be an opt-in,
yeah.
right, versus an instructive.
Mm,
But here's what I will say. If you're looking for a sign to work on your mindset, this is it. This is the sign. You're listening to it right now. If this sentence is in your earballs, this is your sign. Because the reality is, if you think, then you should be training your mindset because it will, because if you have an unexamined mind, if you have an untrained mind, then this is the source of great suffering or discomfort or fear or doubt or things like that, because that's the nature of the mind, is to move into these directions. And it doesn't need to do that. It doesn't need to be that way, right? It's not logic. It's false reasoning to think that you're not good enough. That's not logical. That's the biggest lie you'll ever believe. And so for me, I want every single person on this planet to be able to love themselves mentally and emotionally. I feel like it's our birthright, and we are so conditioned to not. And so, if you're a human being and you think, then I highly, highly encourage you to know how to train your own mind so that it supports and empowers you throughout life, because life is really tough, not just backyards, but life. And
mm,
to have a mind that is on your side is like the best gift you could ever give yourself. The results are literally the quality of your life experience.
yeah.
That's how important mindset is. It's the quality of your entire life experience. The quality of our mind is, in many respects, the quality of our life.
Are there simple exercises someone can do daily to improve their mental resilience?
Uh, I'm extremely biased, Pato. I'm going to say, yeah, do my athlete's self-belief journal. It takes 5 minutes a day, and there are 365 daily exercises,
Yeah,
right? So that is incredibly simple. And it's incredibly powerful, because it can be like, I know that you want an answer like, put on your shoes and go for a walk around the block, or do this or do that. But to build, like, I want to promise everyone, I really promise you, it doesn't need to be that hard. But I don't want to give you some shallow advice that is going to be on some, Instagram reel. Because if you want that stuff, go to Instagram and go and find a reel, but it's going to lack the substance that you truly need, right? So here's what I'll say. Um, Understand that your mind can become your biggest ally instead of your biggest, like, sort of thing that undermines you or holds you back, right? And so, in order to do that, you need to be able to see your own thinking. You need to be like, because, like, let's say if I had a running gait that was terrible, but I had no idea, I'd just keep doing it.
yeah,
I would need a running coach to say to me, hey, Claudine, your gait is doing this and that, and I need to bring you to your awareness. Like, the first step is awareness. We need awareness of the thing. And then I can become, it's like, oh, I need to correct that thing in my gait so that I can run more effectively, or so that I can do this without injury. Is exactly the same with mindset. The very first thing that I would do is help people to see the thinking that's leaking their confidence, or leaking their, but not just confidence, their performance
mm,
or their belief. And so, is being able to, not be entangled in your thoughts, but to see it more objectively. And that is so much easier than you might think. But probably the simplest one of all is that, what's available to you is that you can decide like that. You can make a decision that you are going to stop putting yourself down, or you can make a decision that you are going to stop doubting yourself, and you can make a decision that you are going to start learning how to believe in yourself,
mm,
right? That's a decision. You don't need any skills, you just need conscious awareness, and you can decide. And that, like when I teach, this might sound so ridiculous, but when I teach when I teach people the power of deciding, it changes their entire being. You know, deciding that I'm going to, like, the power of deciding is enormous. Deciding to have a goal that's going to serve you, deciding that you're not going to believe in these false narratives, deciding that you're going to find all of these false narratives and get rid of them, being you're not going to believe in things that aren't fundamentally true, deciding that you are going to be a big ally for yourself. Like the power of deciding is a really, really big one. So if you struggle to decide, um, you're going to change your life by learning how to decide. It's going to empower the heck out of you, and you are going to freaking love it.
Yeah. So does the athlete self-belief journal kind of like help pinpoint areas where like because some people might be have a negative mindset and not even know it.
Yeah, absolutely, Pato. They respectfully, we all do. We
Mm,
all have these thoughts. We think it's the truth. Okay. And these are things that are accidentally undermining us. I'm not doing it deliberately. You're not doing it. We're not doing it deliberately. Okay. This mindset that you shared before, this thought that you shared before of if I don't do a PB, then the word like it's over. I'm downhill from here.
mm,
That's a negative thought. That's disempowering.
mm,
Okay. We didn't realize that wasn't true.
yeah.
All right. All we needed to do was hold it up into the light and look at that for a minute and say, hang on, just, oh, you need someone like me to say, hang on just 1 second. Is that really true? Is this thing I'm thinking really true? Now, when you're in the heat of the moment, I've asked this question a ton with my clients. They put something on the table. I know for sure that shit ain't true, right? But I don't say that straight away, right? They give me lists of this stuff. And we go through them. I say, what about this one? Is this fully true, partially true, or untrue? And they'll say true because they're on autopilot. I say, let's have a look at it again. Let's have a look at it. Is it really true? Is it really true that every single race you need to get better and better and better and better? And if you don't do that, do you see that math doesn't math,
Mm,
right? And we can start to see it's false reasoning. It's what's known in sort of it's a cognitive it's a logical fallacy. It's known as a logical fallacy where it's held up by false logic, right? It doesn't matter what we call it. I can just help to point out that this thing isn't fundamentally true. And if I can show you one of these, they disempower us. Again, I'm not hugely into like positive and negative. I want to look at, does this support me through life or not support me through life? I prefer that sort of framework. And even more importantly, is this accurate or is this inaccurate? Is this true or only partially true? Or is this not true at all? I want to be accurate and true. That's where I want my benchmark from.
yeah.
And then from there, we can say, that's how because I'm not trying to convince anyone of it. They can see that's not true. Then they can actually believe. This is how I help people to create authentic belief,
Mm,
is because they can see, actually, that's not true. Like, Pato, my worst one, my one, that my narrative that oh my God, for years, my one was if I come second, then I'm a loser. Like, let me tell you, I was such a loser. I came second at the first ever world titles that I went into. I was sick to my stomach for a year. I believed that narrative inside out, right? Second place, my first world titles. Are you kidding me? How incredible. And yet I managed to find a way to absolutely punish myself over it, right? Because of this false belief system. And it would like again, I am my first client ever. I am, the ultimate guinea pig because I learned all of this stuff because this is me. I know this stuff because I had these mindsets and I still have to find them and I still have to pull them out, just like everybody, right? I'm not some enlightened creature that is above the. No, we all have the same style of mind,
mm,
right? And then when we can recognize, like, oh, everyone, this is one of the most incredible things about these live group coaching calls that I do for the self-belief journal. What blows every single person's mind, because I hear this over and over and over again, is that everyone realizes everyone thinks just like me. It's insane. Like people think People think that Olympians have great mindsets. People think that, these people in winning these ultras have great. Let me tell you guys, they don't. They are so riddled with fears and doubts and false thinking patterns, just like you and me, right? And um, and it's like the biggest myth is to like of course, some people have a confident mindset. I'm not saying, but everyone has these parts of their thinking that are false and biased and, resting, it's hinging on these false belief systems that are disempowering them.
Mm.
And so it's like when you realize that, wow, this person has this fear and I have that fear, it takes away the stigma and you realize, oh shit, we're all just the same. Yeah, yeah, let's do the work. Let's get rid of this stuff so we can feel like amazing and move in the directions of our goals and dreams in a way that is confidence building and real.
That's one of the things in backyard ultras. It's a little bit like that is when you're running and things are hard, you look
Mm.
around at the other runners and you've got to remember that they're also feeling the same, well, pretty similar to how you're feeling.
Right. I mean, maybe yes, maybe no, maybe not on that loop, maybe on other loops. Right. And the other thing with backyards is that people can just, that's it, it's over, it's game over.
Yeah.
It's not this linear thing. It can be, again, nothing is a one size fits all,
Mm.
right? But you can see someone, I mean, where was it? Was it John Knoll? My God, that
Yeah.
athlete, right? Every loop, 57 minutes, 57, like our bigs last year, right?
Yeah.
57 minutes, 57 minutes, 58 minutes. Jesus Christ, this guy's on the edge. No, this guy's top five. This guy is a savage,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like, nah, he can hang on for so long. He was fine. Everyone's got their different styles. So what we think um is like, oh, and then some of the really, really fast runners, I won't point anyone out here. I don't want to say anything unfavorable, but sometimes you can get a really, really quick runner who's like top of the leaderboard, and then all of a sudden they just can't do one more,
Yeah.
right? So it's not linear.
Yeah.
And understanding that they are probably hurting. We don't know to what degree, but also they could drop any minute.
It's it's like when Phil won bigs, like and Phil typically runs his loops a bit faster. Like some people were saying, okay, this is definitive proof that fast loops are better than slow loops.
Okay.
But I don't really agree with that because I think
Okay.
everyone's different. Like everyone, what's best for one person in a backyard ultra may not be the best for someone else.
Well, I think that first of all, we are not all equal in our skill set.
Mm,
Okay. So if you are a slower runner and you push for a fast pace, you may run less,
yeah.
right? I think that to be the last person standing, I very much agree that, I mean, there was evidence in Phil that because he is so good at sleeping and resting, for him to be able to do a fast loop and then maximize rest, that strategy works exceptionally well.
Mm.
Where we have disproportionate comparison is with an athlete like John Knoll. Okay, who did he come fourth or fifth? I can't recall. Have you got that? Do you happen to have that up there?
He did 111 loops. I think it was
Mhm.
equal top four, equal fourth, I think it was.
Right. Okay, so if we were to do, I don't have the stats in front of me, but if we were to look at those stats, those that math doesn't math up.
Mm,
Right? His time on feet versus his volume of loops. So it is just truly never a one size fits all. Now, let's also not forget that if someone else could have continued, then maybe Phil could have continued. He certainly looked like he could have continued as well. So that was not his maximum. So it's just not apples and apples here.
mm,
Right. But I think that it really comes down to do I think that it's beneficial to run a faster loop to sleep? Yeah, but only if that's in your skill set. If it's not in your skill set, that's not a good strategy.
yeah.
Of course, it's going to help to be a quicker runner.
Yeah. The now you often hear about taking care of your nutrition. This is just in life in general. Just
Mhm.
eating well, sleeping
Yeah.
well, and exercising is good for the mind.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you agree too?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you got to get the basics right,
Yeah.
right? Garbage in, you're not going to get enlightenment out,
Mm,
right? You're not going to like low performance in. No one's driving an F1 vehicle putting in low performance fuel.
yeah.
Okay, right? So, attention to quality, so awareness and quality of what you do and how you do it really matters. And the basics of um, like recovery and fuel, so sleeping and eating are just the fundamentals, right? And those things are really, really, really within your control. They're within everyone's control,
Mm,
right? At least they are, I will say, as a nuance, they are less in your control in an event because it can be very difficult to eat something when you're nauseous or to be able to hold. So I understand that that's a nuance there, but in your training, in your and in your prep, all of those things, 100% in your control. You should be aiming to get 100% out of those things.
yeah. Excellent.
If you want to be a high performer and if you want to get the best out of yourself, I should add.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. So, backyard ultras aside,
Mhm.
like Rafael Nadal, he's probably the sportsman I think had an amazing mindset. Just watching him, he would never give up. He would come
Mhm.
back from two sets to love down,
Mhm.
and Novak Djokovic did it last night as well.
Right?
But is there a sports person who you've watched from afar and
Mhm.
just admired them for their mental toughness?
Pato, so many,
Yeah.
so many. I mean, I have been doing this truly since I was a kid. You
Mm,
know, I was a kid, I was at primary school. I used to like beg my parents to stay home so I could watch the Olympics. And like, I just really was obsessed with excellence and people, particularly sporting. As a kid and like, um, it was as an adult, it became more domains, not just sport, but fundamentally it was just athletes. And it was more, I was just drawn to champions and winners and excellence. So I would say that I was not just drawn to sort of like mental toughness, but just fundamental excellence.
yeah.
Athletes who are excellent. My first loves were, Nadia Comaneci because I was a little gymnast as a girl. And I was just obsessed with her, like perfection, perfection, perfection. Like, hell yeah, like, oh my God, I watched her fictional movie, like 100 times. And then, I was into all of the sprinters, all of the incredible sprinters. Then it was the distance runners, all the track runners. Then it was the marathoners, right? And then it evolved into like the surfers and like sort of and I was a martial artist, so I was looking at the fighters and but it was. So ones who really stand out, Ronda Rousey really intrigued me because she was unbeatable and also because she had this really, really like what appeared to be a bulletproof mindset. But I felt like I could also see in Ronda's approach, I could see this is going to sound like in hindsight, but yeah, I could just see like if she lost, that was like a question of life or death for her.
Mm, mm,
And I could just the seriousness with it. And then one day when she got beat by Holly Holm, you know, I kind of about a year later, there was an article on Rhonda and it said that she felt like when she got beat by Holly, it felt like a part of her died. And I was like, I'm not surprised because that was her belief system, right? And so like that's what I mean when I'm always looking at how people think, right? But yeah, I just admire and I still admire Ronda Rousey so much for who she was, what she did. She set like, fighting was the men's game.
Mm,
Right? Everyone wants to go see all the male fighters. No, no, no. Everyone wanted to see Ronda. And that's what I love because I'm not interested in men's this, women's that. I just love excellence. I'm never concerned. I don't even think about gender,
yeah,
right? I'm just like, this person's amazing. This person, this athlete, this person, you know. Um, and Rhonda for me was one of those who just like all the men were enamored with her. They all admired her as an athlete. And that was what I loved about Rhonda. So she was just groundbreaking there. Um, I mean, I could just go on and on. There are so many athletes that I just admire. In the backyard ultra world, I will say that I really admire Harvey Lewis. And it's not just their mental fortitude. For me, I love people's character. Character is very important to me, and I love the joy and the energy and the lightness and the incredible skill that he brings to ultras, to backyards. Um, he's inspirational, and I just have so much respect and admiration for him. When I saw him and Ihor battling it out in 2023, Ihor instantly won my admiration. I was so impressed with such a young man, could be so just beautiful as an athlete, incredibly inspiring, incredibly like his relentlessness was phenomenal,
yeah,
right? Um, uh, I really admire Sam Harvey for how original he is and how unabashed, how he just doesn't care, and how aggressive he is, and not aggressive, but how dogged he is,
yeah,
right? I really admire him for that. So there were just so many different types of athletes that I admire in so many different areas. But yeah, it's I just love how I love the relentless ones, the ones with the grit. I love the smart ones. I love the ones who break new ground. You've got to love Phil for breaking new ground and for doing things that are just setting the benchmark for what humans can do. So yeah, the admiration runs deep and wide, I assure you.
yeah. Um, what's one of the things I love about backyard ultras is it's such a simple concept, just running, doing loops on the hour, every hour. But there's so many great personalities, and there's not only great personalities, but there's also so many different styles and strategies that go into
Mm.
it as well. So
Mhm.
you can really latch on to one or two runners that really inspire you or that you want to be more like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, I hope everyone listening is, I'm sure they are. Everyone's got their favorite runners for different reasons and who they are. And I think that, it's reflecting back to us something, a part of ourselves. It's sort of like known as the mirror of relationships.
Mm,
And we admire and we're drawn to people who reflect back to us a part of ourselves that we want to nurture, that we want to be, that we want to become. And then the opposite is also true, the people who repulse us and who we want to sort of be like that reminds us of the type of things that may be inside of us, but that we want to resist, or we don't want to have, or the things that we fundamentally want to avoid. So I think that we can learn so much from the mirror of relationships, and really, from these people that we admire, and say, how can I become more like this person that I really admire? The athletes in backyard ultras, for me, I really think that a movie should be made about backyards. I think it is so compelling. I think that the athletes are so unique. I think that they are all so special. I mean, I could go into a lot of detail about how many different athletes, like, I just think are incredible
yeah,
and unique. What I love about it is the originality and the uniqueness of everyone as well. I just love people being themselves.
yeah,
And, it's so cool. And
yeah.
yeah, everyone who runs backyards are just incredible people.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned UFC and MMA a bit, and I think that that's what that's why UFC has been so popular because they really did a really good job at shining a spotlight on the individual fighters and you're learning about their personalities.
Mm.
And I think the
Mm.
same thing can be done with backyard ultras.
Without question, it's like, where's the media, right? There's no sport without, sorry, there's no sort of global reach, or it doesn't increase if we don't have publicity. So
Yeah,
the media is what makes brings more eyeballs, brings more attention. You know, what's one of the great things about a lot of the backyards now is obviously the race directors using the live stream, having the leaderboard. Race directors, if you're listening, please always have a leaderboard. It is also really important, in addition, and have a really high functioning leaderboard if you can, because it is so compelling for the viewer to be coordinating both the visual with the leaderboard, looking at the times. It gives us another thing to obsess over, and to, to look into. But what we really need is, other people covering these things as well to get, well, I mean, I think it depends where the sport wants to go. Maybe it wants to stay. I'm not the boss of this sport. It doesn't, not everything needs to be big and huge. Maybe this needs to stay more niche and underground. Like, so what? I think it really comes down to, does it need to do anything else?
Mm.
I think that's an interesting conversation and exploration to have. I think one thing that I would like to see is some of the athletes, you know, who are dedicating their lives to this sport. It would be great if they were to be financially supported back in return. But again, that's up to the athletes to then, they may not want to sign up to that at all, which I completely understand. But, discovering how to become a sponsored athlete, discovering how to do deals and collaborations with brands. That's a whole other skill set. And they may not be interested in that at all. But there's no question that there are fees involved with dedicating yourself to any sport. Passionate athletes, don't we just spend all of our money on our sport? Like, isn't that what we do? Most people are doing that, just pouring their money into their equipment, into competitions, into traveling, so yeah, to try and they work so hard, they do so much. I know they're just doing it for the love of it, for the passion of it, for themselves. But it would be great if they would also be, I guess, financially appreciated too.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, Phil Gore is like not only the world record holder, but the world champion, and he should be almost a household name, I think.
I think many people would be, I think that many of the athletes deserve to be, I think that their stories deserve to be told.
Mm,
Um, and again, it comes down to like media and communication and storytelling and like that sort of thing. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of, there are entire industries dedicated to this type of thing. And it's hard to take something that's unknown to make it known.
mm.
So yeah, but yeah, that's really up to, I guess how when someone wants to sort of step up and say, "Hey, I want to do something with this. I want to make this sport big." That's what it really needs is a leader, to someone to step up and own it and commit to that. That's a very big task though. So, and it's certainly no one is obliged. It's probably just a passion thing that will, I do think that there's financial opportunity there for someone but again, the desire has to be there, and they need an incredible skill set to
Yeah,
be able to do that work as well.
yeah. So, Claudine, do you have any spaces for new athletes, and how do they contact you and all that kind of thing?
Okay, well, if anyone is interested, just at a very simple level, you can follow me on Instagram, and my handle is at Claudine.chi. So I'm sure, can they go, Pato, will you be sharing show notes and stuff like that? Or,
I can,
or do I
I
need
def
to really spell it out right here?
I'll definitely post on Instagram and link
Yep.
your profile to the
But just for some,
Instagram.
let's say someone's listening to this in 2 months' time or in,
Yeah.
right? So what I will say, so probably the best place to work with me is in my Athlete's Ultimate Self-Belief Journal. It is a 365-day mental training program that is more expansive and more empowering than I can possibly give justice to in explaining right now. But it truly is, that is truly my life's work. Um, it is exceptionally accessible. It doesn't matter where you're sort of at. So let's say if you're more a beginner, you're going to get it, you're going to be able to do it. And if you're much more advanced, you're going to get so much out of it. Like, it really meets you where you're at.
Mm.
And it will take you to entirely new levels of awareness, the ability to see your thinking, to be able to create thinking that supports and empowers you to stop. Like month one is setting up the foundations of your mindset. And as Joel Sexton said, he could not believe that he could change his mindset and evolve so much in 30 days. And, that is very, very common response for everyone. So you get pretty much immediate results. Month two is around how to stop leaking your mindset. Month three is how you develop, just incredible self-talk, right? But so each month is like a core skill, and it's distilled into just 5 minutes a day of strategic journaling, which I make it very, very simple and accessible. So you can do the journal. And if you want to work with me directly, and if you want to join other, backyard ultra athletes like James Blanton, Joel Sexton, tons of other ultra runners, and as well as other top performers from lots of different athletes and other fields as well, you can join us in the live tier of the journal. And it will you will absolutely love it. It is so fun, so empowering. The results will be they will be bigger and more than you. I know that it might sound like hyperbole, but I can just say this with so much confidence because this is just what happens. People's results are exponential and just amazing. So, yeah, I would love to meet you and I would love to empower the heck out of you. So, yeah, let's go.
I love it. Now, Claudine, I also ask my guests at the end of each podcast for their three backyard ultra tips. So, what would your three backyard ultra tips be?
Oh my gosh, I just feel like I've given you 2 hours of my best possible tips. Okay, right. Feel free to pick any of those.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, I'll make them tips. I'll keep them simple and easy.
Yeah.
Number one, just decide if you're going to be an amateur or a professional. Okay, work out which one of those you're going to be, and then act accordingly. If you decide to be an amateur, you can stop now and you're done, right? You don't need any more tips. Go and have a great time, go and have fun and go for it. That's plenty. You're good, you're set, you're good to go. If you want to be more professional and if you want to really dive into the next level of yourself, um, train with more seriousness, train with more focus, challenge your thinking around what you believe is possible for you. I would like to respectfully challenge everyone who can do 12 hours, double your performance. Just double it. Just instantly double it. Just say, I'm going to do 24. That's that. And set that goal. You make that decision. And then you're going to figure out how to do it. You need to figure out how do I become the type of athlete that can just double their performance, right? Do you see when you ask these questions, it just takes you into like these whole other levels, right? So, um, my tip would be to challenge your goal and to really make it inspiring. That's really going to move the needle on who you are and how you're going to show up. And number three, um, don't just put few mantras in your back pocket and think that you're done, right? It would be to really do the mindset work. Um, uh, it would be do 5 minutes of my journal a day and watch how your running and your backyards will transform and your mindset will too. So they're my three tips.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I've It's been unreal.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks so much, Pato. Yeah, I've really loved it. Thank you for asking me such deep questions and such, so many questions. And thanks also for letting me, ask you questions in return and for sharing your thoughts and for putting them on the table. I really appreciate it. And I hope that to everyone who's listening, that it has served you and you've had a really great time. If you're still here at the end, it means it was okay for you. So thank you for still being here.
No worries. Well, have a great day and we'll keep in touch.
Awesome, Pato. Thank you so much and go crush it next week. Have a ball.
Thanks.